Alrighty, well, everybody, welcome to episode 44, Small Talk, Big Moves, Networking for Young Professionals. And today we're here with Caroline Cueva. Caroline is the Marketing and Business Relationship Coordinator for the Good Shepherd Community Care. I've known Caroline for a few years now, so it's been a lot of fun. And of course, as always, Caroline, let's start off with tell us about an interesting recent networking event that you've gone to.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. My most recent and cool networking event that I attended was a couple months ago. I went to the Chamber's Young Professional Cornhole Tournament, which was very interesting. It was the first time we'd ever done something like that. I've never been to a cornhole networking crossover before, and it was super fun. It definitely brought out a lot of new faces, which was really cool to see. And it was probably the most interactive and active networking event I've ever been to before. So that was great.
Did you win? That's a really important question.
No, I did not win, unfortunately. And it ended up going way past the expected end time because it was a very high competitive competition.
I heard about that.
Yeah, it was like 3 hours overdue, I think, because they kept going.
Wow.
Well, it sounds like your karaoke events are very similar.
Very similar, yes.
Well, I guess, Caroline, why don't you jump in, tell us a little bit more about you and what you're doing at the Good Shepherd.
Of course. Yeah. So I have been with Good Shepherd Community Care for just over 5 years now. I came in as an entry-level position doing some bookkeeping and things that I wasn't really super interested in, but it was a great starting place for my first job out of college. Mm-hmm. And very quickly, I moved into a communications role working under our VP of Advancement, Jennifer Sachs. And I've been in that kind of role for the last 4 years now, continually growing and being promoted into, higher levels of responsibility. And now as the Marketing and Business Relations Coordinator, I oversee all of our social media channels. I do a lot of our website upkeep. I help to plan a ton of fundraising events and initiatives. And I'm out in the community building relationships with fine people like yourselves. That was like a really big portion of my job, is actually acting as the representative of Good Shepherd, going to a lot of chamber events and kind of promoting what end-of-life care is and what we're doing for our community. So it's a really cool opportunity, and I get to meet so many amazing people.
So I'm really fascinated about, how does networking play into your business? I mean, is networking a really important way of sort of connecting the right people with the business, or is it more about what is the goal of the networking that you all do?
Yeah, well, so Good Shepherd is nonprofit. We were the first hospice that was established in Massachusetts 46 years ago, and we are one of the few remaining end-of-life care providers that is not-for-profit. Mm-hmm. So my role, it's always kind of split, where when I'm out in the community building relationships, there could be a different focus. It could be I'm looking for fundraising and, foundation support, or I'm trying to just spread our awareness about what we're doing and hopefully can help some people who are looking for some similar services. Everybody experiences death at some point in their lives. It is an inevitable thing that everyone will face at some point or another. And what Good Shepherd is really passionate about is making sure that people get to experience death the way that they want to. So not in a hospital or, going through it in a last minute way where they maybe don't have any of their plans or their family or the people that they want around them. It's making sure that their wishes are going to be upheld at the end, and they're going to have all of the people around them that they want to. So that's a lot of what I'm doing when I'm out in the community is, do you have a plan in place? Do you know what your wishes are? Do you have family members who might be going through something at that time that you maybe need some help with? That is definitely a big part of it. And then, of course, on the other side is the fundraising efforts and seeing, can we get your business to come and support us or sponsor an upcoming event or something like that?
So so you mentioned that the cornhole thing was a young professionals networking. Obviously you've been at this for a while, but it's sort of interesting, like as you sort of look over like the 5 years that you've been doing this, like what are the lessons that you've learned that you're like, if I could go back 5 years ago and tell younger Caroline like what to expect or what to do differently, what would you tell her?
Oof, that is such a deep, thoughtful question. I mean, definitely to go into it and not have so many scared and like nervous impressions of what hospice is to begin with. We really at Good Shepherd like do so much education around hospice and end of life care to really kind of get rid of all of those nasty connotations that are surrounding the word hospice. So that would definitely be like the biggest thing is like, don't be nervous. Don't go in scared. Like it is a natural part of the life cycle, and to kind of just embrace it and make sure that you can go about it the way that you want to. I would say, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question enough, or if you'd like me to talk more about like the networking aspect of things.
No, I mean, it's interesting because it's like networking in it of itself is like for many people is scary, but to have to network about a topic that people are sort of like hesitant to talk about, I think it seems like it must be an interesting, it must be / have been an interesting journey for you as you've been sort of building your
I
mean,
I think what Jeff is also saying, like, how do you talk about it at networking?
Well, that's the funny thing is, as soon as I mention it and I say the word hospice, everyone immediately gets all downcast. And
Yeah,
that's so sad. You're an angel. You're so amazing. I'm like, no, I'm not a nurse. I'm not on the front lines. I am the one who is taking all the photos and making sure that we're putting out an accurate representation of who we are. I'm not the one actually doing the work.
well, you're spreading awareness. I mean, that's part of the work.
Of course, yes. But I'm not a nurse. I've never been. I'm not a clinical staff member. They are just absolutely amazing. And those are the angels of our organization. I just try to make everything look pretty.
Well, which do you find harder, the fundraising work or the talking about the hospice, look, as you deal with clients, like, is one of them harder than the other, or are you sort of gotten to the point where like, like, I don't know, I'm sort of jokingly thinking like, well, if you don't want to talk about death, we can talk about your money and donating.
Well, Caroline's very flexible there.
Oh, yes, definitely. I have learned how to read the room and kind of know which way to gravitate towards. It can definitely be tricky, especially when you're talking about hospice. It's sometimes, a conversation that people just do not want to have, and that is okay. If that's the case, then I can talk about all of our other amazing programs, like our children's grief program and all of the aftercare that we can do and palliative care. There's so many different things that we can talk about, so it doesn't have to always be focused on death and dying. Go ahead.
Well, I think so. That's a fascinating. It's a really interesting, line of work that you're that you're in from a marketer's. I mean, my background is marketing, whatever, but I've always marketed like
food,
Hershey bars, and
things that are automatically happy.
No, of course, there's a very bad tie in there between the unhealthy things, but we're not going to go there, right?
Probably the most difficult thing I've had to market was when I had to market Stop and Shop. But we used to have focus groups about Stop and Shop, and people are like with customers that were supposedly our best customers, and they'd be like, but I love Wegmans. I'm like, oh gosh, like
well, we're not talking about Wegmans.
We're not talking about Wegmans right now.
Well, marketing in our world is so different than what marketing is in other people's. I mean, we don't use any stock photography. We don't do, things just pulled from the internet. All of our marketing is our clients, our patients, the people that we're serving. It's their testimonials of how they experience their care with us. It could be one of our nurses talking about, a case that was really challenging for them and how they kind of navigated it. It's really different, and it's very interesting to get to hear a lot of the different stories that a lot of our clinical staff members get to experience on a day-to-day. And those are the things that I like to share. Here's our nurses that were over at this hospital and they had this experience and this was the outcome. And we got to get a person out of the hospital and into their home where they were able to die with their loved ones surrounding them. it's stories like that that really set us apart from other industries.
I as a marketer, I love that. Like the idea of using storytelling is so powerful, but also so important for building that trust, which is, I'm assuming, like, I mean, when you're entrusting the care of your loved one who is, in a really difficult moment, you trust the people that you're that are going to take care of them. And so I love the storytelling is always amazing, and frankly interesting too, because storytelling is what works from a fundraising perspective as well, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our supporters are people who were either a family member of a patient who experienced our services and they found, a great experience and they wanted to support us and let us continue our work, or they sometimes come back as a volunteer and help to supplement some of our services that we're providing. A lot of them do come back and get super involved with programs. They continue to come to all of our events throughout the year. We have a family who we've recently been working with. Their mother passed away when they were young girls. They went through our Heart Play program, and now they come back, they volunteer. The dad has gotten his business involved as a sponsor. So it's like a whole family affair. And it's really amazing the way that we can touch all different parts of the family.
So, Caroline, is part of your role planning those events as well?
Yes. Yeah. In the nonprofit world, everyone wears a lot of hats.
Of course. I'm always, that's because we don't talk a lot about planning your own events for networking. So I always, anytime someone comes on the podcast who actually does the planning of the events, I'm always like, tell us everything. Like, where do you start? Because I think that's like, anyone can go into a room and meet people and not be a weirdo and network. But I don't think everyone can plan a good and successful, meaningful event. So I'm always curious, what's your take? Where do you start? How do you plan? What's the bad, the good, the fun?
Well, yeah, planning an event, you'll go through everything you just mentioned, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
Right. The panic.
I know Steven knows that in his work. But when you're planning an event, it's always thinking about what's the ultimate end goal. Is it to bring together community? Is it to reach a certain goal? Fundraising. Of course, at Good Shepherd, it's always a little bit of all of it. And that's what's really fun. And so I get to do really cool events with Good Shepherd. And then on the other side, I also get to help plan events for the Charles River Chamber of Commerce because I am the chair of the Young Professionals Committee. So I get to do a lot of event planning, whether it's in-house for my organization, like I'm currently doing, or if it's like a networking focus, like the chamber. So I actually was in part of the process of planning that cornhole tournament, which is really cool. We've done trivia nights for the young professionals. We are going to a brewery very soon. We do a lot of really fun things, and those are really fun to get to plan because the chamber staff is involved as well. So they do a lot of the heavy lifting, and then we kind of bring together all of the fun aspects of it. And I feel like my biggest takeaway at a networking event is trying to find a shared activity or experience. I think that is always the best way to start a conversation because it always gives a common ground where you can both find similarities. So that is always something that I'm trying to bring into any of my events as I'm putting them together is what is one thing that we can do that's going to start the conversation?
I agree. I know we talked about this, I think on our podcast last week with Jeff and I were talking about how when you have like, and I put in quotes like icebreaker, but an activity that is kind of like, you don't have to be like the stereotypical, oh, what do you do for work? It's you're in the moment doing a task. So you get to like build this like really cool connection with whoever you're doing that event with, because it's a shared experience versus a shared business opportunity.
Well, I know one example recently was the sip and paint, which that one was a lot of fun. I'm still not an artist after it, but that was a lot of fun. But no, having been to a bunch of Caroline's events, I've definitely appreciated the diversity from one to the next. Some interesting ones that maybe are not exactly for me, but that's perfect, right? Because they're for the next person, next group, that sort of thing. It's been really well, I think, overall choreographed.
So, and it's really interesting. I was just, I don't know, it was funny. I saw this article yesterday, and I probably normally wouldn't read it, but it was about networking. And this person was basically like, I'm an introvert. I hate networking. And basically this person essentially what they were talking about was they created a book club, but instead of having everybody read a book, they had everybody bring the book that they were reading. And this thing, like, which was a really cool idea, right? It was like a little bit of like a show and tell. This is a book I'm reading, whatever. And it's like ballooned to like this person, like who is an introvert now has like 700 people in their, in their network, in this group, and that huge events and whatever. It's so interesting, like to your point about like, there's so many different ways that you can find, like not everything works for every person. Some people love, dinners, other people hate going to, conferences or whatever it is, but there's so many different ways that you can network and events that you can, that really speak to like certain groups of people. I think it's like anything in marketing, like you have to understand your audience and figure out what's going to appeal to them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think Caroline said it perfectly in the beginning, right? Where it's, what is the desired outcome, right? Because I get it all the time. Like, oh, what does an event with you look like? I'm like, well, it depends. Like, what are you trying to do? Who are the people you're trying to attract? What is the end goal? Et cetera, right? Like, it's not a one size fits all. And certainly with Caroline, it's the same thing. And I think for all of us as organizers, when we do that, right, it's what are you trying to accomplish? And so, yes, certainly it's what I've seen Caroline put on. I think that she's done a great job with it.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, we meet once a month for our Young Professionals Planning Committee. And that meeting is always, I kind of run them and I always say, let's start with an icebreaker because I like to get to know everyone a little bit better. And then we start to go through all of our agenda items. So we talk about the previous month. What was that event? How did it go? What's your feedback? What are things that we can improve on? What went well? And then we look forward the next month or two. We say, okay, we want to have either a happy hour at this place, or we want to do a lunch for a second time. And it's kind of like based on what the event is going to be and who we're trying to attract. What else are we going to add in that's really going to bring the audience? So like when we're doing just a happy hour, that's great. You have drinks, you have snacks. But for young professionals who aren't maybe the most comfortable at networking or don't really know how to start a conversation, what else can we do to help really get them, eased into it, more comfortable, and really get the most out of this event for them?
Yeah. Well, and this is advice I've had and I've been given and from multiple people and heard at multiple talks about networking or whatever, but it's, if you really want to make an impact and build a network in an organization, get involved. And it sounds like what's really awesome about you is that with the chamber, you've gotten involved and you are part of that Young Professionals Committee. But it seems like when you bring people in to help on that committee, you try to open doors for them to get involved in their own way too. So how have you found that in your relationship building with other young professionals in the group? Do you find that you're almost like a linchpin in the group now, or like tell me all about it?
Yes, I feel like I am the Lego pieces that help to build all of the people together. Like every time I meet somebody new, my go-to is what brought you to this event and who are you trying to meet? And based on their responses to that, I already am starting to think of, okay, I know this person who would be a great person for you to meet. I can think of another person. Let me either introduce you to them right now because they're right across the room, or I'm going to send an email and I'm going to connect you to online and get you together because you are both amazing people individually and I have to get you together. And that is something that I love to do, is trying to find people who are going to gravitate towards each other and are going to make a great connection. I feel like I can go back to Stephen, that he had joined the chamber about 2 years ago and I was his assigned ambassador, which is another one of my chamber hats that I wear. And I was the person who welcomed him into the chamber, into our community. And right off the bat, I had told him, these are all the different things you can do. Here's all the different avenues you could take. And I had told him at that first meeting, I'm the leader of a small networking group. We have, a great group. You want to come check us out, definitely give it a try. And now here we are a year and a half later. He's been a member and has worked with almost, half of the people in our group?
Oh, yeah. It's been quite a few at this point, including a fantastic donor event, right? Thinking about the end mind, right? When you have the that sort of crew, right? Absolutely fantastic wine event we had at one point in time. So that was right off the bat. And, again, neither of us really looking for that sort of thing, but here we are.
So it's really interesting because so many, I think, young people frankly, young people, but even like, actually I've been having a lot of conversations recently about the fact that like even just people in corporate roles that, don't necessarily have to network, and they don't really know how, and they don't know how to get started. I love that ambassador idea. I feel like maybe I got I got left out. I don't think I had
I want to be fun.
But it's really like, how do you create a relationship with them?
Well, and Jeff, to your point, there's some statistic out there about how membership for networking groups across the board is actually down and has been consistently going down over the last, I think 2020, it obviously went off, and there's been a little, but it's kind of tapered like this now. But that ambassador idea, and just because I know for me, when I walk into a room full of people, I don't know anyone. Sometimes it can be a little bit like, what do I do? Why am I here? Like,
right.
But when you get involved and you're part of something, like I was on the programs committee for a couple of years with FEI, and it was so awesome because I would approach anyone who I hadn't met before, and was like, hey, how do you like the event? Yep. What other types of events do you want to see?
Right.
And if every networking group or event that I went to had an ambassador who came over and was like, hey, who are you? Here are other ways to get involved, versus me having to find and seek them out, I probably would. Maybe it's a good thing, actually, because I probably would have zero time on my calendar if every person presented a way to get involved with every group that I've attended an event with, because I like to overcommit myself sometimes. But I think that's just such a great way to drive not only engagement, but membership, and keep the people and really build that community as well. That's awesome.
What's so interesting, I was at sorry, go ahead, Carolyn.
It definitely gives them a friendly face to find in the crowds. When you do walk into those 100+ people events and you're feeling isolated and they don't know where to start, you can find that one person who's a friendly face, and then they're going to connect with everybody else. And that is so helpful.
So two things that I'm thinking of as we're talking about this. One was I just dropped my youngest off at college for his first year. It's so interesting because at some point during the first day that the parents were still around, but they kind of had the parents off doing one set of things and the students off doing other things or whatever. And he was like, this feels so fake. And I said, it's social engineering. I said, they literally told us in the parents, information session, they're like one of the biggest predictors of whether someone is going to be successful in their first year in college is if they find a friend. So important to find one person can make the whole difference between like you having a great time or not a great time. And so it's so important to do that. But it's also interesting because the other thing that the conversation made me think of was I was at I won't say what event because I don't want to call anyone out, but I was at an event recently. And like my go-to thing is when I see a group of people that I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go walk up and talk to them. I walk up and talk to them. I just say, can I crash this conversation? That's my go-to line. It works like every time, whatever. But every once in a while, I crash a conversation and the people are like, it's like you're some kind of alien. Like, why would you come over and like talk to me? And I'm like, because it's a networking event. Like, why wouldn't I come over and talk to you?
I've had those before, Jeff. They haunt me. I swear to God.
Well, you made a great point about making friends. And I think that is really what the Charles River Young Professionals is all about.
Yeah.
You go into a chamber-wide event and it's everybody giving their elevator pitches and shaking hands, and it's overwhelming.
Right.
And you go to a Young Professionals event and it is friendships first and business second. It is, what are you doing this summer? What's your next vacation? What's something that you've been loving recently? What's your go-to song that is on repeat? It's all of these more fun, candid conversations that's going to bring you together first on personal levels, just to get to know each other. And then you can start to have those conversations about, all right, now that I know you a little bit more, tell me more about what you're doing. Tell me about what you're passionate about. And I think that those are the best ways to really start those conversations and build relationships.
Now Jeff wants to go to the young professionals events.
No, I'm wanting to, but for some reason I just never get younger. So they sound like fun, but I do think it's funny because I've been talking to a lot. I think Stephen and Amelia know this. I've been talking to a lot of job seekers recently in my coaching work, and one of the interesting things is, first of all, job seekers are like often have never had to network in their lives. They've never even had to network for a job. And so they're suddenly in this moment where they need to network and they don't want to, because it's like, the last thing you want to do is network to find a job, because like you're like, it feels icky, right? I just met you and I'm like, hey, do you have a job for me? Is kind of like, feels a little whatever. And so I keep saying to people, like, you need to network to build your network. You do not need to network to find a job. And it's very hard, by the way, to tell a job seeker that, because they're like, no, I need to find a job. I'm like, I know that you need to find a job, but I'm telling you, you will find a job faster if you build your network as opposed to if you try and get a job. And it's very hard to get people to sort of understand that. But I think that's true with, business and sales as well, right? It's like, you network to build your network. And then, like literally I had something happen today where like, I've been talking to actually it's a former guest on this show. And suddenly like somebody randomly just reached out and said, hey, Jeff, would you be interested in coming and doing a presentation on middle management? Because that's sort of my thing that I talk about. Would you be interested in coming and do a presentation for us at our company? Somebody I met, a long time ago. And it was like all of a sudden they were like, oh, we have a need for this thing that Jeff does. We should invite Jeff, right? As opposed to like, it's like, but that only happened because we've been building a relationship and I invited them on the podcast and blah, 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 blah. So it was like those kinds of things that happen over time because you've created a relationship with people and people then think of you when they're like, oh, you should talk to this person that I know.
And it takes years to develop that sometimes, but
it's literally, it's leaving a trail of breadcrumbs to leave an impression behind. And then when they need something, you want to be the one that they think of. Oh yes, I remember that person because of this or because of that. And that's what your ultimate goal is to be, memorable. Totally.
Well, so we're having a great conversation here. So I've let this like fly by a little bit longer than I'm supposed to. So I probably should bring us into the wrap up. But Caroline, as you know, we always like to wrap up by having people talk about one cool networking event they're going to in the near future. We always like to start with our guests. So what's your event?
Well, it's in 2 months. We are going to be hosting our Heart Play Hoedown. So it is part fundraiser, part networking. It's going to be an absolutely amazing night on October 23rd over at the American Legion. We are currently selling tickets, and we are going to be featuring line dancing and live music and a whole bunch of barbecue food. So I really hope you will all come and join us for that.
Sounds like a blast.
That does sound fun.
What is it, before I give mine, what is the best place for people to reach out and connect with you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. I am very active on there. So if anybody is interested in connecting, I would be more than happy to touch base on LinkedIn.
Awesome. For me, I think that the event that I'm going to talk about is, I actually have gotten myself sort of involved as one of the coaches as part of the University of Rochester has a group for job seekers. And so they asked people who were coaches if they would be interested in being part of this sort of new platform. And so this is the very first month, and they have different moderators each month, but I signed up for month 1. And so tomorrow we're having a little event where alumni can come and, ask questions to me and another coach about, their job search. And so that's, it's back to your point about like getting involved and making connections. I think a really interesting way of getting involved is to volunteer to help people. So that's
cool.
That's, what I'm up to. Who wants to go next? Amelia, Stephen?
I mean, I can go today. This week's actually, I have a lot. I'm looking at my calendar, and I have a lot of client meetings this week. So I've been getting reassigned a lot of legacy clients. So I'm meeting with a lot of supporting strategies and getting a lot of new clients, or
Mm.
not new to me, not new to the company clients, to build relationships and kind of help them streamline processes. So the only like real networking, and I'm putting this in quotes, event that I'm doing is actually a virtual event on Wednesday morning that I'm part of, just a referral network group that we jump on and we chat and we do like an ask, a tell, a give. And then that's it. Yeah, this week's, I think it's because I was out last week for half the week, that this week's a little bit light. It's a lot more focused on just catching up with the in front of the computer stuff.
Very cool.
Steven, bring it home.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm moving tomorrow, actually, to Burlington, Massachusetts, not Vermont or another work Connecticut.
Say wow.
Because I have gotten that question quite a few times. So I'm still staying in the state. And so this week is a little bit lighter than usual. However, today an interesting opportunity presented itself that I've been working on for a little bit. And it's actually being the wine person at the Boston Cup. So the Boston Cup is basically 100 cars that are all super high-end, interesting, you name it, that are in the Boston Common 1 month from now. And so it's a super high-end, interesting car show, and I'll be the wine guy at the VIP tent if I can actually finish closing this. So that's the event. I'm going one way or the other, but hopefully I'm going there as the wine person at the event, because that'd be huge.
That's awesome. Well, Caroline, this has been terrific. Thank you for joining us. Cool to hear all of the different things that you've got going on, and looking for. I sort of somehow managed to take the summer off from chamber events, but I got to get back to chamber events, and so it's always great to see you there and all the other folks. So, but thank you, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I will definitely see you at those events soon.
Cool. Thanks, Caroline.